I admittedly was quite excited for the launch of Peaky Blinders, the King's Ransom VR on PSVR2, and as a VR player I am slightly mixed or disappointed, but as a Peaky Blinders fan I do feel quite fulfilled with this one, especially for its asking price.
Bastards.
No!
I'll meet you in Limehouse.
Hey.
Hold fucking dry, my boy. But you don't. Oh, fuck. The Peaky fucking block.
Man, I mean, that just puts a smile on my face seeing that. There's a mix of good and bad here, especially for a VR player that doesn't necessarily expect but strives to reach a good level of immersion, because there genuinely are some great things about this game, including the sound design, the voice acting. Some of the set locations are wonderful, but there's also a lot of confusing design choices that I heard when reviews for the original on Quest came out, and that is some really weird combat decisions like carrying ammo, some shootouts that didn't really feel that balanced and felt a bit janky, some tracking issues that I did run into, and a lackluster resolution. That being said, there's a lot more to get into than those statements alone, and the issues and the good things run a little bit deeper, so let's get straight into it.
Okay, forgetting you don't talk.
Oh, that's part of my character, is that I'm a mute. Nice. Let's talk visuals first, because overall, in terms of direction of art, I think it carries over the Peaky Blinders setting of Birmingham really well. You feel like you're there with all the sounds going off and the visuals looking pretty great. Walking along those cobbled streets with Red Right Hand playing was a really cool feeling as a fan, but I feel like if you don't know much about the show and are just going into the game for a VR experience, you won't get the same kick out of that as I did. It's cool being here, I won't lie. This is really neat.
He's not the little lad.
Oh no, I can't show this song. I'm gonna vibe to it though. Oh my god, Killing's actually in the game. I can't play this song because it's copyrighted, but it is a tune. The resolution is actually fairly low, and I found that quite surprising considering this is essentially a Quest port which should be able to run looking very nicely. But no, past a couple feet, the resolution gets a little muddy, and that was a bit of a disappointment for me, but close-up objects look pretty good, the character models are okay, they're stylized enough to the point where I didn't feel like they were low poly or anything like that. But yeah, that resolution just needs a bit of a bump, and this game would jump up so much higher in my rankings. Overall though, the game kind of shows you the best visuals that it has at the start with that massive Birmingham street you walk down. Past that, the indoor spaces still are fairly detailed, but they're just not as impressive, and this is quite common for VR games to show you the most impressive sights right off the bat to get you hooked, without fulfilling the promise of really one-upping that at later stages throughout the game. And that is indeed the case here. But overall, the visual presentation made me feel like I was in the show, but unfortunately took me out a little bit because of the resolution. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit blurry, like it's quite blurry actually.
Welcome back to Small Heath.
Like, she's fairly blurry over there. I think for my playthrough I was around 3 hours-ish to finish the game. There are some collectibles you can go back and get after you're done, but to be honest I wasn't really too bothered with doing that. And the game itself is made up of shooting people, doing puzzles, and doing fetch quests for different characters, and if you go the wrong way, you're essentially told you can't go this way, go another way. So it's never really too challenging. I am a complete milkshake brain that cannot do puzzles. You've seen me play Red Matter. It is a disaster, but this game didn't really challenge me in any way, and to be honest I found that fairly enjoyable. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I didn't come into Peaky Blinders thinking I really want a puzzle game here, but the puzzles that it does have aren't too engaging at all. They're pretty simple. Luckily I was quite enthralled by the voice work and by the story that it's got going on, because it felt like I was in an episode of the show pretty much, which was exactly what I was looking for in terms of tone and story. Uh-oh. Whoa! Oh.
Let me get a look at you.
Haha, fucking slimmer.
Well, time's not been kind to you, eh?
However, I did feel like the shootouts that you get into throughout the game weren't great, and this is because of a couple of things. The AI is kind of stupid, and they just kind of sit behind cover, stay there, peek out, shoot you, and that's literally it. You can kind of time their attacks pretty well and just take them out. The game also starts with aim assist on. You can turn that off if you really want to, but it still really won't be that high of a difficulty. And while it was really cool fighting alongside, Tommy and Arthur and everything like that, I did feel like there was a bit of a missed opportunity for the combat, because you can only
have one magazine in your pistol at one time. You cannot store ammo like you can in basically every other VR game that involves shooting. That means you'll get into a firefight, and while you can freely move around the environment, there will be conveniently placed magazines, molotovs, and stuff to use throughout the battle that's just kind of littered about.
I feel like I should be shooting people because this feels like I should be shooting people through this area. Doesn't it? Have I fucked up the game? Okay, now I've ended up back where I've started. That's fine. Okay, I think we're going over here.
Calm your nerves.
Alright. Bollocks. Ah, okay. I was right. I was walking through the areas of the level going, this feels like a shooting gallery. I feel like I should be shooting enemies here. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happens. This music's kind of hard though.
It takes you out of the game a little bit, knowing that you can't have a stash of ammo, you've got to look for it in environments, and it makes the fights feel a bit more artificial. I went from feeling really immersed into this Birmingham setting to not really immersed because all of these items were conveniently placed there for me. I also ran into a couple of bugs and janky mechanics, especially when trying to select things on my journal. You have a journal that you can kind of write into and make choices in, and I think that's pretty cool. And it also houses your items, but I did find it a little bit annoying with tracking, trying to pick up items out of my journal or press buttons. I haven't had any tracking issues in many other games, but when my hands and controller secluded each other here, it had some real problems with me trying to press the buttons that I wanted to in my journal, and I'm not quite sure what was actually causing that. But yeah, a bit of a weird one that, but I did run into that bug a couple of times. And I also just had some enemies shooting at me, and their bullets would go through the cover that I was hiding behind. They wouldn't actually hurt me, but I'd see them go flying through the wall, and that's not really the most immersive thing in the world. However, after all that is said and done, I have to give them hats off for getting Cillian Murphy and Paul Anderson back as Tommy and Arthur. This is the thing that really sold me into the game and made me feel like I was actually in the show in this VR experience. That and the licensed music of having Red Right Hand that I could only show about 5 seconds of because it's copyrighted. Having them as that presence in the game gave it a bit of gravitas, and I know this game I think is funded or at least supported by the BBC, so it's not surprising they got them back to reprise their roles. Maybe it was in their contract, but you can tell they were back here, they were having fun as the characters, and it makes you feel that extra bit immersed into the story.
Who the fuck do these Bolsheviks think they are, eh? First the betting shop, now this.
Oh, I love Arthur, man. This is his voice and his acting, and that voice acting is so good.
Another mechanic that I absolutely love is the fact that you always have a cigarette holster and a lighter holster on you at all times, and I just found myself walking through the streets, taking out a cigarette, lighting it, and smoking it like one of the characters. It helps you get into that role-playing character personality when the game gives you these tools on hand to use at any moment. A character would be talking to me and I'd light up a cigarette like they do in the show, and that just made me feel part of the world a bit more. It reminds me a lot of the London Heist from the original PlayStation VR Worlds game, if you ever played that, where they give you the option to smoke a cigar, and it made you feel like one of the gangsters in the story, and it feels the same here, and I love that, I really do.
That's just the coolest feeling. I don't know why. Especially when you know it's not going to give you lung cancer because it's not real.
Despite that though, the issues do rear their head a couple times throughout the story and the game, and I'm not sure if I can fully recommend this to people who aren't massive fans of the show. For £15 it really isn't too bad for this. It's a 3-hour experience that is quite a lot of fun and puts you in the feeling of being in the show, but from some janky mechanics to bugs and resolution issues, it might be one to see if it gets updated. If you're a big fan of the show though, you'll definitely get a kick out of this one. I certainly did. I absolutely love Peaky Blinders, and that's kind of worth the price of admission alone, to be in a world with these characters and to act out a story that feels like the show for a couple of hours. It's a really nice bit of escapism, and I love that. Overall though, it is a mixed bag, but if you're a fan, you'll still get a kick out of it. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you all in the next video.